being there for your teammate Kyle as he opens up his season as well. Like, how much of it is the parent thing? How much of it's that?
Yeah, it's all of it. And I think for me, why I listen to that song, you got to go listen to it. It's pretty encouraging, and sometimes you just have to remind yourself that there's just varying degrees of difficulties and decisions. But I think it's threefold, right? I think about Kyle and his preparation and kind of what this job means to him, like kind of what he's always wanted to do. And I don't want to bother him. I want to encourage him. I don't really know his vibe yet. So there's a certain degree of unknown, for what that open and that first quarter is going to be like. There's that, right? You walk in last night, I think we pulled in about 9, and there's all these Nebraska fans and the lobby's loaded. And I'm immediately thinking to myself, oh my God, like, where's the elevator? Um, I talked to a couple of coaches, and it settled me down for a second because it was just kind of about football. Caleb sent a message when I was on the interstate, and it was just weird, right? He sends a message and he says, RVP says, what up? I looked at Austin. I'm going, what's wrong with this dude? Like, of all the things, like, you're gonna send me a vamp. I don't know. You can ask Austin. Like, I'm dead serious. And so I said, oh man, we're on our way down. ETA is whatever. He's like, oh, we're just at the movies. We're watching Superman. See you when you get here. And so that was like, in that moment, I was like, oh, that's cool. That's what it's about, right? Movie night with your guys. Maybe he's excited to see his dad. And I get up this morning and I'm like, is this guy going to be nervous when he comes out of like, who has more nerves, me or him? Right. So then I recalibrated, and I'm not thinking about not being there tonight against Omaha North. And then I get a text message from my special teams maven, and he's like, hey, need your depth chart and rotation ASAP. I'm just thinking, ooh, back to reality. It's like just the back and forth, And I don't know. The game, like I said, can't get here soon enough. Just too much time to myself, and I'm gonna go take a great big long walk and hopefully not run into anybody from Nebraska. But from the looks of it, that's going to be next to impossible. I cannot believe how many people are here. I don't even know. I get it. There's people coming down to this morning, but has anybody left in the state of Nebraska other than people that are like, I don't know, man. It just seems like it seems like Nebraska has definitely moved south.
It's just me, Rico, and Shane. That's the only.
That's it.
Left.
Everybody else is gone.
I like Shane's open. That was pretty good.
That was legit. Got a little goosebumps. It was nice.
Yeah,
chicken skin, as Dylan would call it. Chicken skin.
If I could just press fast forward, which is everything that I'm not about, right? I'm Mr. Stay in the moment and try to maximize, but I'm just telling you, tonight can't get here fast enough.
So you were talking about how many Nebraska fans are down. Like, what's the scene been like? Like, is it as dramatic as we sort of anticipated?
Yeah, it's that and then some. I bumped into a lot of the parents of players. I saw the Lindemeyers and Ingersons. Talked to Dom for a long time about Dylan and his lovely wife, and like that's the cool part that like zeroes you in, right? I was chopping it up with the Merritts for a while about Dawson, and you sometimes forget, like, from a fan's perspective or covering these guys in the media, there's this parental caregiver vibe, this element that of just unwavering support. And I pit that against practically the state moving south, right? The unwavering support. And it's a special thing and a special place. And I can't wait. I was rereading Dirk's tweet about the kind of the tenor and the tone of the fan base tonight and what he thought it would be. And I think he's spot on in terms of the energy and the passion and the love that I think will be at Arrowhead tonight, and I just hope the guys and the staff feeds off it, because I think it's relatively unique. You don't get to take those things for granted. So I hope when it hits them, man, it really sinks in.
Mm. So I am curious as we kind of get into talking about the game here. You know, we've talked a little bit about it all week, but I do wonder as we get to game day. You and I have kind of talked, I think, off air about how we think this game might go.
Yeah.
I don't want to put you. I don't want to put you out there unless you want to say it. But as you're getting there, we're less than 12 hours away now. Like, have you started to get a vibe of how you think this one's going to go?
Yeah. I think, early on, I think last week I was telling you off air, and then on air, I think I kind of dumbed this down to Nebraska's defensive front versus Cincinnati's offensive line, and the cat and mouse matchups in terms of what Nebraska wants to do in terms of neutralizing Sorsby, and how I think Cincinnati wants to play. And it's intriguing because I think Satterfield's style has a blueprint a lot more than I think Nebraska's versatility up front. So right there, I think advantage Nebraska, where I think Nebraska's got a ton of pieces, a ton of parts, and movable parts that I think that they can utilize. Now, they still have to go out and play well. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not just because, the element of surprise and, advantage Nebraska. They still have to go out and execute. So I like that advantage for Nebraska. I also think, and I'm watching, hours upon hours of how I think Cincinnati wants to move the ball. And it was confirmed by MRI yesterday, right? He was joking about how I'm smiling and I lit up because I'm trying to figure out how Cincinnati is going to keep Nebraska honest with some interior run game. Like, how will they get to some sort of tackle to tackle run game? I don't think Cincinnati can make a living with just perimeter run game. And so, can Nebraska hold up on the edges, right? Can our secondary level guys get off blocks and dominate the perimeter? Because if they can, it could be tough sledding for Cincinnati offensively. Coach Satterfield said last week, he wouldn't necessarily call the offensive line the strength of his team. I thought that was interesting. And that would be if it's a posture move and he's playing cards, that would be, my man's playing like 7 deuce offsuit kind of with that comment. So it's hard not to get into that. And I get into the schematics. I just think if Nebraska keeps their wits about them and plays with some poise, then they've got a chance to do big things. The one X factor, I think, for Nebraska is it's just not a team historically you've been able to trust. And, they've kind of been in some of these moments and they've had expectations and it hasn't come to fruition. And so I battle in my own head Nebraska playing against history, which is what I always get upset about people actually doing, right? This is not 2003 against Okie State, Power 4 last season opening win is not this team's burden to bear. But I can't unknow what I know.
Yeah.
So I think once we get past the trust aspect of this team could be pretty good. I said, how long will it take for us to say out loud that this is a pretty good football team? Well, now we're here, right? I can say it incrementally. I think it's a pretty good offensive line. I think they're talented at quarterback. I think, Ja'Cory Barney is a really good player. I think they've got some experience and some depth on the back end. Like, those things are all factual. Like, I know these things. Now, how they manifest themselves tonight in an opener, again, humans are the single greatest variable on the planet. So we got to let that bad boy ride. But, man, I'm telling you, if Nebraska, they got a chance to be pretty good. And I mean that. I felt that for the last couple of months. I feel it watching them live. I like the temperament of the coaching staff in terms of injecting and infusing confidence and not blinking. Because this deal right here, when you get into this kind of competition, and you're going to have 70,000 screaming fans, and it's national television, you gotta drill down to the most finite. And the most finite is, what you have in that locker room with each other. It's not some corny coach talk or, fathers. It's none of that. It is real. And when those guys come out of that tunnel and they're holding hands, man, it's about them. It's got nothing to do with anything else. And the more that they can compartmentalize that and do these kinds of things in the moment, this team's got a chance to be pretty good because talent isn't an issue. It's not. And I believe that. I've seen this deal long enough, and I can look at body types and see guys run around. Talent is not an issue. It will be, can these guys navigate the 6 inches between their ears to give themselves the best opportunity to play to their God-given ability? And that's what it's going to boil down to. That's what openers are about. Who can manage their emotions the best, because mistakes are going to be made. It's who can stay in the moment and tee this thing up for 60 minutes. And at the end of the day, that's how Nebraska will ultimately earn this fan base trust, where I think they can truly rally, because from a talent standpoint, they're where they need to be, at least at this juncture.
So you want to talk about talent? We're speaking with self-proclaimed grill master, Hurrdat Sports Live, radio network, football color commentator Damon Benning. Yeah. Speaking of talent and mistakes, we were talking earlier about Nebraska's defensive line and them getting pressure on Cincinnati and Sorsby in the passing game. I know you guys talked with MRI yesterday, and he mentioned a lot about the run game and stopping the run and keeping Sorsby from using his legs. But in terms of getting to the quarterback with 4 new offensive linemen for Cincinnati, we set the over-under. I set the over-under at 3.5 sacks, something like that. What are your thoughts on Nebraska's defensive line getting pressure on Sorsby in the passing game, at least?
Yeah, I think they just got so. As far as the hard data and stats, I'm not sure, but what I will tell you is the key for these guys. And I got a chance to. The first player that I saw in the lobby last night was Riley Van Poppel. He was with his parents, and I gave him a big bear hug from behind, and I asked him if, I said, hey, are you dialed? You ready to go? And he's like, man, I'm just ready to be relentless. And I slept on that word forever, because it can mean a lot of things, right? Relentless in the pursuit of happiness, relentless in the pursuit of excellence, relentless in the pursuit of, and you fill in the blank. If this front can play with just that relentless intensity, they have numbers in which they can come at you in waves. How hard and how relentless are you willing to be to get Sorsby to the ground? I loved it. I said this to Ravi. I said it on the show. There was this weird thing that came over me listening to the intensity in which Coach Butler talked about setting the tone by getting hits on Sorsby, not allowing his physicality to dictate how that game was going to play out, how he wanted his team to understand that he needs to feel their presence early to get this bad boy started. And I love it, because there's that warp kind of, I don't know, Ravi, go ahead and say it, that serial killer mentality where I enjoy that aspect of competition, and saying if we can truly get to a point where I can snatch the life out of you, where you can see the soul just leave the body, where you're like, man, I don't want to be out here anymore. That's the kind of relentless pursuit that this defensive line is capable of playing with. They have the numbers to play that way. But when that gas meter is going from full to empty and everywhere else in between, can you stay right there and be relentless? If they can, they have a chance to be a really disruptive unit, and it starts tonight.
DB, so as you're talking about this, you're talking about humans being the biggest variable. You're talking about being relentless. You're talking about a killer mentality. And
I mean, our own D coordinator talked about the hunt.
Yeah.
If you will. I love it. I love it.
You would.
And so I'm sitting here talking about, hey, like, talent's not the issue, and I agree with you there. And I'm sitting here, and I promise this is a Nebraska point, but just give me a second. I'm sitting here, I'm watching Coco Gauff in the U.S. Open 2 days ago, right, in her opening round. This is somebody who talent's never been a question, right? But we sit here, and she goes, she straight up has 2 parts of her game that just are not working right now: her serve and her forehand. She cannot rely on them. They just disappear. She's literally led the tour in double faults the last 2 years, right?
Well, she's coming off 89 unforced errors, right?
Yeah. Yes, correct. And in a match that she won, right? So
89. That's a big number.
that is giving away more points than it takes to win the sets to win the match. Like that, literally. So I'm sitting here and I go, okay, this is a person who has no reliability on two of the most important parts of her game. And yet, in the last 2 years, has made 2 semifinals in majors, has made a quarterfinal in majors, won the French Open this year, has 4 titles over the last 2 years. And I think to myself, if Nebraska, and I know we don't always love the press conference answers and maybe some of the antics or whatever, but I sit here and watch someone who cannot rely on 2 of the most important parts of their game, and she wins anyway. And I can't help but sit here and think if Nebraska can channel just a little Coco Gauff over the course of this season, then that's kind of what we're talking about, right? Like things, you have to be able to win when things don't go right, right? Like you have to be able to win when there's certain parts of your game that you're used to relying on that don't go the way you want them to. And you have to, sometimes you have to, like you're talking about, snatch the will from your opponents to continue to play. And sometimes you have to end up with the other team saying, I don't know how we lost that game. Our stats look better. I mean, it's probably how Kansas State felt against Iowa State on Saturday, right? You're like, our stats look better. We felt like we controlled the game, and we come up on the short end of it. Like, if Nebraska can do a little bit of that, I'm going to feel really good about this year.
Yeah, I think that's, in my opinion, I think that's the key. It's really, really critical. And, you know, what has ailed this program and this team in the past, yeah, you know, some of it has been due to the physical prowess, right? You always want better players. Mm-hmm. But I think the crux of their issues have come from that 6-inch space that they've got to navigate between their ears. And that's from the top on down, right? From leadership to coaching, you know, it's trickled into the fan base. And it's like this mental, this mind game of us against ourselves. And, you know, it's such a daily battle. I mean, look, I woke up with one, right? Where you're managing 15,000 different things and you have to remind yourself to stay in the moment. And I'm experienced with failure. So you'd think I would know how to navigate that a little better than this morning when it presents itself. But that thing with this football team is the thing that I was most excited about. And I told you about the CEO portion of Coach Rule that I love is the individual touches that he can provide with position groups or specific players, where he can inject some of that competitive endurance into the spirits of players. Because if they can develop the just hang in there and to know that the goal is to get your opponent to quit before you do. You just have to train in such a way where time doesn't matter. And it's easy to say, but it's not as difficult to do as we make it out to be. And the work that these guys have put in physically, right? Taking it down to the wire and when to put on half or shells or go helmets only, or, you know, the Tuesday, their Sunday being a good work day and getting after it. Like, he's not doing a walk and talk saying, hey, this was a Tuesday practice for us. It was a good work day. He knows. He's asked around. He knows what Tuesdays and Wednesdays are supposed to mean on game week in terms of your capacity to take your guys there physically, where you roll tape on Saturday, or in this case, Thursday night, and the players need to be saying to themselves, you know what? Practices was a little bit more grueling than the games, right? The tempo in which we move at practice and the physicality in which we play at practice was a little more grueling than what happened in games, because that's the goal. And when you play with that kind of confidence and you're in elite level shape, you feel better about yourself. And for this team, it's not even about starting fast. You know, I hate that, right? It's been their inability to finish. And it's not a physical finish. It's an emotional finish. It's like, oh my God, it's close. And how are we going to find a way to wet the bed? That's what's been this team's, or this program's problem. What this team has to understand is that's not their burden to bear. Right? It's not for them. It's for us in the media to talk about. It's for the fans to worry about. It's for the naysayers to worry about. It cannot be for this football team. It is not their burden to bear. Stay right here, tee it up, let your nuts hang for 60 minutes, and let the results be what they will if they can just do that. It's the whole simple versus easy thing. They'll be just fine.
We're speaking with big game hunter Damon Benning.
Yeah, I get hyped, man. See, the switch is starting to flip a little bit.
He's getting into it, and this is kind of what I wanted to get into. Is you said you woke up and you kind of had these internal battles that you were going through. How different, like, what are these players going through in being in a new city for the opening game of the season, and and not being like a true road game? You've got all these fans and everything, but you have to sit in this hotel room or whatever they're doing until you end up going to Arrowhead Stadium. Like, what is the mental toll that is going on for these players? I mean, you already spoke about how it's going with you. What about the guys that are going to be on the field, and like, how are they going to deal with that? You talked about dealing with everything up here. How are they going through that?
Yeah, everybody's kind of got their journey, right? Where some guys kind of like music, some guys pace, some guys like solitude. The coaches did a really good job, I think, the last couple of weeks of simulating the game week. Hey, the day of the game, just last Thursday, breakfast was at a certain time. You get your downtime, you get to recovery, you get to your meetings, you have X amount of time blocked off. Then you get to your next portion of the meetings. You get your bus schedule and your itinerary, and you try to map yourself through that. It's not necessarily muscle memory, but it's emotional memory. Now, the X factor is adrenaline. Like, this Thursday is different than last Thursday, because at 8:05 when toe meets leather, it's all heads to bed, right? Which is different than going through the simulated game Thursday. So guys managing those emotions throughout the course of the day are the ones that'll best be able to channel when the game actually kicks off. It is a long, long day. We'll count this down: 11 hours, 10 hours, 9. Just imagine all the sweat equity that those guys have put in to get to this point. Managing the day is critical. I'm talking about from fuel to hydration to mental fortitude, just managing the day. And their training techniques with kind of their mind gurus, I think, can pay huge dividends, especially for a team like this, who is actually for the first time playing with some expectations that aren't their own. They always have their own internal expectations. This team has got to manage those, filtering out the external, the lofty record predictions, or the actual fearing failure, where I don't trust this team. I just can't see them turning the corner. Historically, they don't win games. There's that too, right? So the ability to compartmentalize and put your blinders on and understand what the task at hand is, and to be regimented in the day, that's the key, Rico. It is difficult to do, but believe me, they prepared for this day for a long time.
DB, as we kind of look at the game tonight, we went through this kind of strange exercise about what people thought would happen today. Do you have like a strangely specific prediction of something you think is going to happen tonight?
Yeah, I look for, if a ball is kicked in play on a kickoff, I envision like a huge Nebraska return in some capacity, punt or kick return. It's the only real tangible thing that I've been able to kind of actually put more than a blur to. I think Nebraska does something particularly exciting in the return game tonight.
I like it.
I don't know. It's weird. I mean,
you're not the only one that thought that.
It is what it is.
Punt return touchdown for Ja'Cory Barney was a pretty popular one.
Yeah, he's electric. I am excited to see him. He is just imagine like a lion or a panther or tiger just getting their pace game right. Like, he is managing his emotions is critical for a guy that is ready to tee it up just about every second of the day. He is he and Cortez Mills, man, they're highly competitive dudes.
DB, you were talking earlier, and I meant to ask you, but I forgot. Now it came back to me finally. You were talking about
welcome to that's the story of my life.
I feel like Shane. I'm on a little delay here, but that's okay. Um, you were talking about the offensive line of Cincinnati versus the defensive line of Nebraska, and I brought that up earlier with Rico as well. And he goes like, "Hey, well, he was kind of playing devil's advocate, which I didn't appreciate, but he said, hey, Nebraska's kind of breaking in some new or at least a little bit more experienced defensive linemen as well." And my answer was chemistry matters more on the offensive line than defensive line. Am I right? Or am I crazy?
100%.
Okay.
100%. It's not that defense is easier to coach, because it certainly isn't, with all the stupid offensive rules and, not touching guys, but without drawing a flag and disconcerting. I mean, it's just nonsense. But anyway, when you're trained the way that this team is trained defensively, to with block destruction and to play with intensity and, balls to the wall and violence, right? That's a different mindset than, getting to the double on duo or, cutting off backside mics in zone, right? There's some physicality to it, but solving problems with aggression isn't as easy for offensive guys as it is for defensive guys. And so at the end of the day, that's the number one rule, man. Solve problems with aggression. 9 times out of 10, when you do that, you'll get the desired outcome you want on the football field. And I think that's the mentality that this defense has to have, right? It truly is a hunt, and it's a big game hunt. I mean, Bearcats, they're tough to bring down. And, that's just the mentality. It was the vibe I got from RVP last night. It was the vibe that I got from the juice, some of those defensive guys in the lobby last night. Like, their mentality is definitely to go hunt. I'm not sure that sentiment plays as well on the offensive line, even though you ask some of these guys, the Orlando Paces, the Lincoln Kennedys, Trent Williams, who enjoys violence at a high collision rate. There are those guys, but timing and technique and being in tandem, it's just different for O-line than it is for D-line.